Good day everyone, we are Group 1 and today we will discuss the theory of Charles Darwin by the concepts of evolution, natural selection, and adaptation. Here are some topics to be discussed. First is evolution, followed by natural selection, and lastly is adaptation. Before we dive into the theory of Charles Darwin, let us know first who is Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin was born on February 12, 1809. He was an English naturalist, geologist, and biologist. He is known for his contribution to the science of evolution. And during 1859, he published his landmark book, which is The Origin of Species.
Hello everyone, my name is Adrian Bay and I will be discussing evolution. So now, what is evolution? Charles Darwin defined it as descent with modification. The idea that species change over time, give rise to new species, and share a common ancestor. This means that evolution involves the gradual changes from simple to more complex forms. The basic idea of biological evolution is that populations and species of organisms change over time. In the 1850s, Charles Darwin hypothesized evolution began in the oceans billions of years ago. He gave the theory of evolution, in which he made the influential and conversational book titled The Origin of Species. Darwin has stated that evolution has come through a series of natural selection and proposed that species evolve and that all living things can trace their descent to a common ancestor. Now let's move on to the voyage of Charles Darwin in the HMS Beagle. He began a 5-year voyage starting from 1831 and ended in 1836. He was part of a survey expedition carried out by the ship HMS Beagle, which included stops in South America, Australia, and the southern tip of Africa. Darwin's seminal book on the origin of species set forth his ideas about evolution and natural selection. These ideas were largely based on direct observations from Darwin's travels about and around the globe. While on his expedition, Darwin found that nearby islands in the Galapagos had similar but non-identical species of finches living on them. He noted that each finch species was well suited for its environment and role. Now let's move on to the evolution of man. Charles Darwin theorized that human evolution is the lengthy process of change, by which people originated from ape-like ancestors. Scientific evidence shows that the physical and behavioral traits shared by all people originated from apes and evolved over a period of approximately 6 million years. Now, there are 6 stages in human evolution. First is the Dryopithecus. These are deemed to be the ancestors of both man and apes. They lived in China, Africa, Europe, and India. The genus Dryopithecus refers to the oak-wood apes. The second one is the Ramapithecus. Their first remains were discovered from the Shivalik Range in Punjab and later in Africa and Saudi Arabia. The third one is the Australopithecus. The fossil of this genus was first discovered in 1924 in South Africa. They lived on the ground, used stones as weapons, and walked erect. The next one is Homo erectus. The first fossil of Homo erectus was found in Java in 1891. These were named as Pithecanthropus erectus. These were considered as the missing link between the man and apes. The fifth stage in human evolution is the Homo sapiens Neanderthalians. The cranial capacity of Neanderthals grew from 1,200 to 1,600. Some small hand axes had also been discovered. This species of hominids could hunt big names such as mammoths. And lastly is the Homo sapiens sapiens. In these, the jaws are quite reduced, the modern man's chin appeared, and the skull was rounded. They gathered food through hunting. Art first appeared during this time.
Natural selection, after a 5-year journey to study plants, animals, and fossils in South America and on Pacific Islands, English naturalist Charles Darwin came up with a concept of natural selection. In his best-selling book on the origin of species, published in 1859, he popularized the concept of natural selection. Natural selection is the adaptation and modification of populations of living organisms. Individuals in a population are naturally varied, which means they differ in certain respects. As we can see in the illustration, there are several species of birds, and the reason why they eat different foods. As an example, apapain eat insects and Ohio nectar, and the Nihoa finch crushes seeds with its large bill. The process of natural selection, adaptive traits that give an individual an advantage, increase the likelihood of survival and reproduction. The adaptive features are then passed down to the offspring of these individuals. These beneficial qualities grow more widespread in the population over time. Favorable features are passed down through the generations through this natural selection process. Natural selection can result in species, or the emergence of a new and distinct species from an existing one. It is one of the processes that drives evolution and contributes to our understanding of the diversity of life on the planet.
According to evolutionary theory, adaptation is the biological method through which organisms adjust to new settings or changes in their present environment. Although scientists had considered adaptation prior to the 1800s, Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace did not formulate the idea of natural selection until then. They thought that organisms' evolution was linked to their adaptability to changing environmental conditions in some way. Wallace and Darwin, in creating the idea of evolution by natural selection, went beyond basic adaptation to describe how organisms adapt and evolve. Natural selection is based on the premise that qualities that may be handed down assist animals to adapt to their surroundings better than other creatures of the same species. When contrasted to other members of the species, this allows for greater survival and reproduction, resulting in evolution. Organisms can adapt to their surroundings in a variety of ways. They have the ability to adapt physiologically, which means they can change body functions. The list above shows the physical and behavioral adaptation developed by species based on their environment. The bodies of individuals living at high elevation, such as the Tibet, are an example of physiological adaptability. Tibetans flourish at elevation where oxygen concentration are up to 40% lower than at sea level. Most individuals would become sick if they breathe air so thin, but Tibetans' bodies have developed alteration in their body chemistry. In terms of behavioral adaptation, one of its examples is how emperor penguins in Antarctica crowd together to share their warmth in the middle of winter. One of the more apparent examples of adaptation is Darwin's orchid and moth example. Plants and animals benefit from their interconnected lifestyle in nature since one property of a plant corresponds to a features of an animal. Organisms, in general, are a jumble of adaptations that come together to make a certain way of lifestyle work. Why? Because there are several issues in the environment that demand solutions. such as food availability, predator-prey interaction, and climate, all of which play a part in selecting advantageous features via natural selection.